Cultivating Calmness Podcast. It is October, and that means it is a very special awareness month. And no, it does not involve a pink ribbon. For me, that has never been a month that I celebrate, but in the last decade or so, something that I have become very knowledgeable of and know a lot about is this particular topic. But you should be aware, throughout my talk today, I will not be saying the specific word that this month we are spreading awareness of, is involved in. And the reason why is because many platforms, as I've talked about in a previous episode on this podcast, is that a lot of censorship happens when you mention particular words. So I will be using other words to describe this particular word that we are celebrating an awareness month of. It is a particular injury awareness month. Another term that people tend to use to describe this is the word jab, or pokes, or cupcakes, or fill in the blank, any other thing you would like to use to reference the thing that goes in your arm or your leg to put into your body something that you're supposed to build an immunity to. That is the Injury Awareness Month that we are celebrating, or not really celebrating, or bringing awareness to for the month of October. So I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about this today, and I will do my very best to not go down rabbit holes, because this is a topic that I know a lot of information about, and I know there are more people out there that know a lot more than me. I have spent years reading books, listening to podcasts, finding information about this topic. So it's just something that I know a little bit about, and I really want to focus today on just the cupcake injury. So what can happen, what you can do if you experience, or you know somebody who's experienced a cupcake injury. And I happen to like cupcake. Not only are cupcakes delicious, but it is a good reference if you're trying not to mention a certain topic. So I may use that term throughout this talk today. If you are coming in the middle, cupcakes are referencing a specific type of product that you get, and we are talking about cupcake injuries today. So what is a cupcake injury? Well, a cupcake injury is something that happens to you once you have received a cupcake. So what are injuries? The injuries range from something maybe we might consider mild, like redness at the injection site or swelling, all the way to the extreme, which would be death. And yes, that has occurred. There are documented cases of death, and a slew of injuries that can occur. And some of those, I will name a decent amount, but this in no way covers all the types of injuries that can occur. These are just some ones that are well documented, and there are other many more well documented injuries that have occurred. Some can be very controversial in nature. I will not be mentioning those specific ones today. Actually, some of the ones I may mention you may consider to be controversial as well, but it is what it is. So again, swollen or puffiness or redness or pain at the injection site. Typically we get those in our arms, but oftentimes when children get them, they get them in their arms and their legs. So it could be a reaction anywhere in those areas. You can experience seizures, encephalitis, that's like swelling of your brain, eczema, hair loss, tinnitus, organ failure, fainting, the term known as POTS. You can have severe allergic reactions like anaphylaxis, where you typically need the EpiPen to help you because of the ingredients that are in those cupcakes. Let's see here, like Bell's palsy. So that's like where half your face kind of like droops, and it looks like you've had a seizure. I already said seizures. Granulomas, I believe those are like the little feels like little deposits under the skin, like hard fatty lumps. and there may be some other names for that, MS or multiple sclerosis, transverse myelitis, 𝗒𝘂𝗵𝘀𝗵 syndrome, and many more. Those are some ones that, I came up with, that I know I've seen happen, and I have read documentation on those types of injuries happening. So when can they happen? They can happen immediately, or sometimes it could take weeks, months, or even years for an injury to present itself. So how do we actually know that it's an injury caused by a cupcake? Well, how do we know it's not? I guess is the question. The assumption is that all cupcakes are safe. Unfortunately, and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, this is for you to do some research, and I encourage you to do so. There are many valid sources, including the CDC, on resources for learning about what can happen, and what type of research is done into cupcakes and how they are proven to be safe, or maybe really not so safe. But there are many sides to this debate. I'm not here to debate that. I'm here to just talk about the injuries that can and do happen. Anyway, immediately, 2 months or years later, you can experience a reaction to a cupcake. In the year 1986, President Ronald Reagan created the National Childhood Cupcake Injury Act, and what that did was to allow people to be compensated for their cupcake injuries through a special court system that is considered a no fault proceedings. It is run essentially by the people who are going to be paying you. So you can take from that what you will. And it was created because there were so many cupcakes that were causing so many injuries that the manufacturers went to the government, went to the president, and asked for something to be done about this. So in order to protect the cupcake industry, to be able to continue to provide cupcakes to everybody, they created the National Childhood Cupcake Injury Act, and that basically took money from every cupcake that everybody gets or pays for, and a percentage of that from those funds, from the money that they make from each of those, goes into this fund to pay for the injuries. Are you with me still? Hopefully you're still with me, okay? So that has its own process. You have to submit documentation, and you have to report to VAERS. That's VAERS, VAERS. That is the Cupcake Adverse Event Reporting System. And it asks for some specific information, but you can go there and you can look up all of the cupcake reactions that have ever been reported on there. From, now I don't know, the internet didn't exist back in 1986. So I'm not exactly sure when and if they've uploaded the past ones, but at least for the last decade, all of those are visible and you can see them, to my knowledge. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me, please. So you have to go there, submit your report of your injury. Again, it could be for the swelling at the injection site, or it could be for something a lot more serious. I personally know numerous people who have received injuries because of an injection. Some recognize those as a injury. Some do not recognize those as an injury. Some have made their own reports. I have a friend, acquaintance who was injured, and their injury was 𝗒𝘂𝗵𝘀𝗁, so they were paralyzed from the neck down for a decent amount of time, and she is still recovering, and I can't remember exactly how many years ago it was. I think it's been over a decade. Still has side effects. She did get compensated, and the compensation fund only compensates up to a certain amount in most cases. So even if you have millions and millions of dollars in medical bills and expenses because of your injury, you will only be awarded a certain amount of money to compensate for your injury. So you can go to that. If you have ever experienced a cupcake injury, go there and submit it. You'll have to hire a lawyer to be able to move any further and to be able to receive compensation. Most people end up wanting to receive compensation, I mean, to cover their medical bills, yes, but also just to kind of spread that awareness that this can happen, because oftentimes people who experience a reaction are shamed or belittled or made to feel like, you know, what they're experiencing isn't real. You know, we might call that gaslighting, but it is very real. And there are numerous books out there that document not only these injuries, but how these injuries happen and you know, why they happen and the science that is behind that. To date, the compensation fund has paid out over $5.2 billion, with a B, billion dollars since the fund started in 1988. And I believe I have that year and those numbers correct, so that those amounts keep going up. And it is very hard to receive compensation. It's not an easy process. It isn't like you go to court and in a month you have your payment. Oftentimes these people who go to court are there for years and years before they see any money for their injury, especially those severe injuries that I mentioned. So this is all just to bring awareness that injury is real. It can happen. It has happened to people I know. I would consider myself to have an injury. Mine was more minor. It's possible that, you know, I could be experiencing side effects from cupcakes, you know, years later. But that, you know, isn't something that is, that I have determined is related, but it is possible. And so this is why, you know, this is kind of where my journey started, even though mine was fairly minor. That's where it starts. You know, something happens to you and it causes you to look into something, and it causes you to do more research and talk to people and find things. And the more you find, the more you know, and you keep looking and you keep finding, and you learn things that you wish you hadn't learned. And then you arrive to where you are today, where I am today. I mean, when I started my practice over 10 years ago, I did not think the way that I think today. So like, I am proof that, you know, you can change your minds, you can learn things that will shape who you are and what you do in your life. I mean, even when I went to college, I was a health education major. I learned all about cupcakes and what they can do for you and how beneficial they are and how great they are, and never once learned anything about how dangerous they can be. That wasn't until, you know, several years later that I learned about that myself. And so my perspective from when I was an undergrad in college to today, you know, over a decade later, almost 2 decades later, I am, you know, completely on the other side, and I've learned many things, and I practice holistically and do things naturally in my home. Again, it's been a process. It's something that I have done over time. I didn't just come to this conclusion overnight. It wasn't something that I just decided to believe. It was something that I learned and I questioned and I thought. And, you know, when you're in that newly learning stage, you often feel this like dissonance where it's like, but I believe this, but how can this be true? And what? I am getting a little off topic, but I wanted to bring awareness to Cupcake Injury Awareness Month for the month of October. And if you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Some books. I mean, there's so many books out there. I couldn't even get to them, but the ones that I wanted to bring awareness to you that may help you to think about that cupcake injury are one that's called 𝗏𝗏𝗋𝗀𝗃 on Trial, 𝗏𝗏𝗋𝗃 Cupcake on Trial. That's by Mary Holland, I believe. There's one called Uncupcaked. That's by Forrest Moretti. The Moth and the Iron Lung. That's also by Forrest Moretti. There's one called Profiles of the Cupcake Injured. That's compiled by the Children's Health Defense. And then Dissolving Illusions is another good one, just to gain some education, but also talks about cupcake injury in there, and that's by Dr. Suzanne Humphreys. And again, many more out there that talk about this topic, but specifically focusing on the injuries that can occur and the science related to them. Those are some books that you may be interested in reading or listening to if you have a way to listen to books. So hopefully this podcast doesn't get me banned or shadow banned even more than I already am. I tried really hard not to say certain words today. Hopefully I passed. I know I almost did it a couple times. So thank you for listening. I appreciate you joining me today, and I hope you learned something a little new, and maybe you think about something in a little different way than you did before. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you again next week.